Well, and we're back. And Haley, let's talk about a near fiasco that I experienced a couple of weeks ago.
It was a close call.
It was a close call, yes. And I was really, really proud of myself because I fixed my problem. See, my dryer quit working. I was overzealous with my drying. I had a couple of loads that I wanted to dry, and I decided, why not put everything in at once?
No.
I can still get it in.
No.
As long as I can push it in, it should spin, right? And it turns out,
I've been reading about good laundry practices.
Well, I have not gotten to the chapter on not overstuffing the dryer. I stuffed that thing like a Thanksgiving turkey, and I couldn't, It worked for a few minutes, and then it quit working, and I walked through the room, and I noticed a very funky smell. Now, the laundry usually has its share of funky smells, but this was different. It smelled like rubber on fire and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good clue.
A bit of a panic. The dryer wouldn't work. I couldn't get anything going, and I assumed that because I was overzealous and tried to do too much too fast, I had destroyed the dryer.
For sure.
That's what I told myself. I figured, there goes Christmas. It's all over.
There goes Christmas.
Yep, we're down to handmade presents now because there's no money left. I've got to buy a dryer. Told all the kids that, and once the tears quit,
dramatic.
we started thinking logically and trying to assess the situation.
Yeah.
And as I worked through, I decided it's probably not toast. The dryer's probably okay. It's just the motor that's probably shot.
Definitely not toast.
Right. So then I thought it's at least not $1,000, but it's still probably looking at, $600-700. Then I thought, I did a little more digging, and I discovered my belt is completely broken inside. I knew this from a previous dryer fiasco. And I looked for that, and I saw the belt was broken, but the thing still wouldn't go on at all. There was just nothing to it. It's plugged in. It's all of those things. Still won't work. So I knew the belt was part of the problem, but I knew I was unable to fix it at that point. I knew because there were other things wrong. So I'd still have to get a technician out there. So now I'm down to about $200 or so that I'm going to have to pay.
All right.
Long story short, I did a little research, more research, and I discovered the problem was just the belt. Replaced the belt for $16.23 or something like that.
Well, it's good that you got the cents in there.
It's really important.
Don't want to round it to 16. That would be a lie.
I don't like to lie. I want people to know. Yeah, it was so crazy inexpensive. An hour's worth of my work. The dryer's humming along, and now I load it correctly. All right. So all of that happened. I was really proud that I figured it out and got it fixed. And what I want to do here is basically take all of the 5 key things.
Like the most common issues.
Yeah. And let's put them all into one place. Now, I know that it's probably not terribly likely that somebody tuned in thinking, I hope they address my broken dryer right now on the show today. So this is probably not happening to most people out there right now. You're not dealing with this. But put this in the back of your mind. Remember that on the Repcolite Home Improvement Show, they expounded on the 5 different things that could be wrong with your dryer that you can fix. Right.
Find it as a podcast. Find it on the YouTube channel.
Yep.
And you can have all of those points archived forever.
Right. And you will never have that complete freak out moment.
Right.
Now, let's get to it. So your dryer quits working. What in the world do you do?
Panic.
Yes. Panic is first, and everybody understands that. The next step is to start with the obvious stuff. Is it plugged in?
Oh, yeah.
I know that's dumb, but
maybe it got jostled.
You never
back
know.
there
I was sure
unplugged.
hoping. I was praying, please let this not be plugged in. So check that. Is it plugged in? Is the breaker? Has that tripped?
Right.
Is the dryer overloaded? I knew mine was, and I thought, okay, maybe if I take everything out, it'll just
work again.
Yeah, I even had that pathetic moment where I took everything out and tried to turn it on, and then I even tried to spin the drum manually to see if that would just coax it into working. It's not a Model T. I don't know what I'm thinking. But I was hoping, is it overloaded? Is there an obstruction? That was the next thing. I was crawling around inside, wondering if something fell out of somebody's pocket.
You were in the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm little. I can fit. I mean, that is a benefit. I mean, all these tall people who make fun of my height, I can go places.
Yeah. It's way easier to be small.
It's easy to hide. It's easy to do things. I never worry about leg room. But yes, I got into the dryer looking for, I don't want to give the wrong idea. I wasn't completely in had a large portion of myself hanging out the other side.
Yeah.
But anyway, look for those things. If it's not any of those things, and chances are it's not going to be, you're going to have to dig deeper. Now, the very first thing to look at, because it's the easiest, and maybe it's this, maybe you'll get lucky.
Sure.
check for a defective door switch.
Okay, yeah. Because if the door closes and it doesn't close all the way, it's not going to turn on, right?
Well, yes. So actually, make sure the door is closed all the way.
Okay.
And then try turning it on, because maybe you just didn't have it closed well. But yes, it's got to be closed tight, and it will trigger a switch. It's a safety mechanism that will allow the dryer to go on. So make sure the door is closed tight. But if it was, now you got to open it up, and somewhere on the inside rim of where the door closes, you'll see a little black switch or whatever, a little white plug.
Yeah.
Whatever your model has, there's some sort of mechanism there. And look to make sure that it's not broken. Some of them have a little lever dangling down. Mine did. And sadly, mine was not broken. I was hoping for something easy. So if it's not physically broken, it could still be faulty or defective.
Okay.
So you've got to get a multimeter. It's a tool that really, it's got a lot of uses.
We've talked about it on the show before.
A lot of uses around the home. They're very inexpensive, but it will help you determine whether these components are working.
Yeah.
So you get a multimeter, and you've got to go online, again, with your model number and figure out how to access that switch on the door, right? Make sure you unplug your dryer before you do any of these things. Unplug the dryer, access the switch, and you should be able to test it with the multimeter to see if there's continuity, see if it's working. If it is, it's not the switch, you can move on to the next thing. If it is the switch, there you go. Buy a new one, put it in, you're good to go. All right, let's say it's not the switch. What are you going to do then? Well, then you've got to look for a broken drive belt. And this turned out...
This is what yours was, right?
And I didn't realize that the drive belt would do everything that it does on mine. I saw the broken belt, but I assumed that even though the belt was broken, the motor should still go on.
Like something should happen when you push the button.
I pushed the switch, and nothing was happening at all. And I figured, okay, yes, I've got a broken belt, but I probably have a broken motor as well, or a dead motor. And the more I thought about that, the more, really, anytime you're troubleshooting with anything, if you find a major problem, even if it doesn't make sense to you that this could be the thing that's causing everything to break down, it's
probably the thing.
It's probably the thing. There's the chances of multiple things piling on top of each other.
Yeah, all at once.
Right. Unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely. And I told myself that. Wait a minute. Maybe the belt, maybe there's some sort of mechanism. Well, it turns out the drive belt loops over the drum, okay? It's a little narrow belt, loops over the drum, and then it goes around an idler pulley before it connects to the motor.
Okay.
Now, in a lot of dryers, that idler pulley is connected to a belt switch, and the tension of the belt engages the switch. When the belt breaks, the switch is disengaged, and it turns everything off.
So nothing happens,
which
is exactly what you're experiencing.
Right. Now, some dryers don't have this. They'll even hum... like I was expecting. They'll hum and all that, but the drum won't turn. In either case, you got to unplug the dryer, all right? So you open it up, look for a broken belt. If you see a broken belt, look for that idler pulley and reach in, again, asking a child or somebody responsible, is the dryer unplugged? Make sure you get an affirmative on this, and then reach in and see if you can move, see if that pulley is on an arm that will move up. Like if the belt were there, putting pressure or tension on it, will it move up and you'll hear it click? When I heard mine click, I realized it's a switch, just like they said it was going to be potentially, and that's got to be my problem. Once I get a new belt on and get that installed, the switch will engage like it's supposed to.
How long did it take you to actually replace the belt?
It took me an hour. That is it. And that is with putting the screws and stuff on the floor, which is really not recommended. I put them on the floor by my feet. And I put them a little bit further away because I thought, I'm going to just kick them. And the very first thing I did right after I slid them away is dropped my screwdriver, and it hit them and knocked 3 or 4 of them under the washer.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So I moved them into the living room. This is great. And I put them on the lint screen because I thought I'll just set them on this lint screen in the middle of the living room.
They're somewhere else now.
Right. So I got everything fixed, and I'm vacuuming and cleaning it because that's what you need to do when you do all of this. You might as well clean it out because they're horrible inside. You'll be surprised. You'll be embarrassed. Right. And then you'll be compelled by what am I looking at? It's very interesting. Anyway, clean that out. I went into the living room, and there was a bunch of fuzzies around the lint screen. I thought, I'm going to just zip that right. Yeah, vacuumed all my screws right up.
Oh, my gosh.
That's okay. They were in the vacuum. I could get them right back out. So anyway, put your nuts and bolts and all your pieces as you take them apart into cups or Tupperware and set them far away.
Yes.
Free tip for
you. Far away.
All right. So check for the belt. That's the next big thing. A third big thing to look for is potentially that there's a blown thermal fuse.
That sounds scary.
Well, it does sound scary, but it's really not too bad. I didn't know about these or, that this could cause this particular problem, but since the 80s, all dryers have thermal fuses. It's
Okay.
basically a very inexpensive, it's a little 1 to 2 inch piece of plastic with some wire leads.
Sure.
And it's normally installed on the exhaust vent, the exhaust duct. And what it's here for, or therefore, is to detect overheating. If the dryer's
so
overheating,
it like doesn't catch on fire or
right,
something.
it trips. If it trips, it's toast. You can't just reset it. And
That's kind of a bummer.
it's a bummer, but they're not expensive. They're pretty
It's like
easy
they
to
should
fix.
change that. Like
Yeah.
dryer people out there listening, I think you should make it so that you can reset.
Well,
The
good luck with
thermal
that, guys.
fuse.
Haley, once she's got something in her head, she's pretty tenacious. So
That
she'll.
seems like a doable thing.
If I were you, I'd get it fixed because Haley will be all over you. But in the meantime, what you need to do is access that. Look for your model online. Figure out where to do that on your model. Most of them are going to be from behind. Make sure it's unplugged.
Right.
Locate that thermal fuse. Use your multimeter again to make sure, is it working?
Right.
If it's not, it's really, really simple. It just unscrews. You take a couple of wire leads off, unscrew it, remove it, put a new one in place,
That's pretty easy.
screw it in, put the leads back in, and you're good to go.
Wow.
So one thing to remember with that, though, before we move on, is if it tripped, likely it's a ventilation issue.
So clean out the ducts and stuff before turning
Clean
back on.
those ducts off.
Yeah, that
Right?
makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So blown thermal fuse. That could be another option. One more. That's on the still on the good side of things. Could be the on-off switch.
Oh, sure.
Right? Now,
Yeah.
if the dryer hums when you push the switch, it's a no-go there. It's not the switch.
So it needs to be like dead. Like
Yeah.
nothing's happening.
You
when
push
I
it and
the button.
nothing's happening at
So
all.
maybe that could have been your problem.
It could have been my problem.
was
I was hoping it would be. And to get at the switch, I'm not going to go through all of that. You look again for your model online, but you can remove that control panel on the top. It doesn't look
Okay.
like you could, but you can. There's little pressure switches and springs and stuff that you can activate, and your model will tell
Gotcha.
you how to do that. I mean, there's tons of great videos out there. And unplug it, access that control panel, then you've got behind the scenes action on that on that power switch, that on-off switch, and you can test it with your multimeter.
Again, yes.
If you've got continuity, wah, wah, it's not the switch.
Right.
But you've had a number of things to look at. One last consideration that we've got time for is the motor.
Well, that seems like a big one.
Yeah, if the dryer won't get going, maybe it hums, it does all of those things, but it won't do anything else.
Yeah.
It could be the motor. I mean, check all the other things, but if it's the motor, you're probably going to want to get a professional
technician.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, have them take
That's
a
a
look at
bummer.
it. Most of these repairs can be really simple, and you're going to feel like $1 million when you pull it off.
Yeah, because all of these parts have sounded fairly inexpensive, right?
Right. Like I said, $16.23 or something like that.
Took you an hour.
Right. Took me an hour. I vacuumed up all the screws. I mean, I had a lot of hairy stuff along the way that we encountered, but that's because that's how I work, and I work fast.
And recklessly.
recklessly. And, for me, I'm still proud of the fact that I got this thing up and running, and I've told you all of those things on air. You don't have to tell people.
Yeah,
You can just tell them that you fixed your dryer.
right?
Or whatever it is.
And feel proud.
It's got a problem. So anyway, log this in the back of your mind. Remember, if you run into some dryer problems, the Repcolite Home Improvement Show has a few things to get you off on the right track. Maybe figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break, Haley, and then when we come back, we'll be in the studio with President of Repcolite, Dan Altina, with the biggest news Repcolite's had
Kind of ever.
of all time. Womp, womp, womp. That's
That
terrible.
sounded like a bad noise.
I know, it started to...
Something
It's
like
good. It's
like we're closing.
It's good news. It's coming up next. Stay tuned.